Okay. And yeah, just to kind of remind everyone, we've got the participant etiquette up here, so please have a look at that. Welcome to everyone that's joined us this afternoon. Great to kind of have you with us. My colleague Tasha as well is on with us as well, kind of managing the chat and kind of saying hello to people, which is great. So yeah, we're a couple of minutes past 5:30, so I think it make a start really. So excellent. Yeah. So this session is Your Degree Doesn't Define You, graduate panel Q&A. And it's all about hearing from 3 of our wonderful Leeds Beckett graduates, Rachel, Courtney and Josh, who have used their degree skills to build their careers in areas unrelated to their degree, as they offer their advice for transitioning from university to the world of work. And hopefully we'll get a chance as well just to talk about what it's like to work from home as well. It's a very kind of unique situation we're kind of in right now. But welcome to all 3 of you. It's really appreciated that you've been able to join us this afternoon. I appreciate you'll all be very busy, just with kind of working. So it's great that you've been able to kind of tune in and offer your kind of insight and advice to our current students as well. It's a pleasure to have you this evening. Okay, so I thought I'd just stick this slide in because I think this kind of fits in quite nicely with the theme of today's session. The idea of a career path being a kind of straight, linear kind of process is to a certain extent, I think, a work of fiction. And actually, the reality is much more chaotic, uncertain, up and down, peaks and troughs, unforeseen events that kind of move you in a number of different directions. And I think all 3 of you, can certainly attest to that, given what you've done with your degree and where you've kind of moved with your degree, and in terms of how your degree and your degree skills have kind of set you up for what you're doing now. We could look at what you've studied and think, well, how does your degree fit into what you've done? Because it wouldn't really fit on paper. And I think there's a lot of kind of preconceptions and a lot of myths around the degree that you study at university and how that equals a specific career. So hopefully, we can shed some light on that this afternoon and hear from each of your kind of individual experiences about your university experience and how you've managed to move into the area that you're currently in, and also to say that you're still quite new as well in your career journeys as well as recent graduates, and no doubt your careers will also develop in the kind of squiggly line kind of way as opposed to that very straight kind of linear way. So there's a what we call a kind of non-linear theme here this afternoon. So let me introduce Courtney. So Courtney, do you just want to say a little bit about yourself? Give you a couple of minutes really just to introduce yourself here, and you've obviously provided us, all 3 of you have provided us with your kind of top 3 tips as well. So I thought it'd be worth kind of sharing those at this point as well. So yeah, Courtney.
No worries. Okay, hi everyone. My name is Courtney. I graduated from Beckett in 2018, I believe now, although it does feel like ages ago. I studied English literature purely because, originally I wanted to be a teacher, but I couldn't pass the skills test. So then I was like, right, I'm not going to uni, that's it. But then I just ended up thinking, right, well, I want to go. I love reading. I did it at A-level, so I just chose the English literature course. Throughout uni, I didn't really have any idea what I wanted to do. Again, the only common theme was that I loved books, literature. So I volunteered at a publishing house in Hyde Park called People Tree Press. I was there for 3 months during my second year, and that's where I was kind of introduced to marketing. We did a lot on press release for novels, and how they are marketed. And that's where I kind of thought, oh, I'd never heard of marketing before, and I quite liked it. So that's where I kind of got the idea from. And then pretty much after uni, I started applying for loads of social media jobs. I also started my own vegan blog on Instagram to kind of give me a little bit of experience. And then I was very lucky enough to get an interview, 2 months before I graduated. And that was with Voice Power, who I'm actually with now. So I was really lucky to get, the first job that I actually interviewed for, which I don't know many people that happened to, but that was something that I was really scared of, is being in a job that I hated, or, what's called a dead end job, like that was my biggest fear. So actually it worked out pretty well for me. So yeah, do you want me to go ahead and share my tips, Ben?
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you, Courtney. That's a real kind of interesting backstory. So if you just want to say a little bit about those kind of 3 tips that you recommend for our students, yeah, please do so.
Yeah, okay. So number 1 is explore your options. I mean, as I said, I didn't really have an idea of what I wanted to do as a career, or what I thought I wanted to do didn't pan out, which actually, looking back now, I'm so glad that I didn't go into teaching, because it just wouldn't be for me. So yeah, explore your options. Look at things that you enjoy within your degree, or even, within your personal life, and see if you can get a bit of experience within that, and just see, if you get a taste for it. Because for me, that was exactly how I kind of progressed into what I'm doing now. So that would be my tip number 1. Tip number 2, again, get as much experience as you possibly can. I mean, I was sick of people telling me this when I was at uni. They bang on it about it all the time, is experience, experience, experience. But they are right. There is a reason why, you need to set yourself aside from other people and other candidates. So all experience is good experience. And then number 3, don't panic. Like I said, I was so freaked out about leaving uni. I mean, I probably started panicking about leaving uni at the start of 2nd year, which was just a bit unnecessary. But again, I was so worried about being stuck in a job that I didn't enjoy that I kind of let it consume me a bit. I think it's important to remember that we are young, we're going to be working for 50 plus years. It doesn't have to be so immediate, when you finish uni, and you don't have to find the perfect thing straight away. So yeah, they would be my tips.
No, that's wonderful, Courtney. Thank you very much for sharing. Really interesting that you got some. Now, I think first of all, you kind of failed you said you failed the skills test to become a teacher, and that failure then kind of sparked what you did next and kind of where you are now. You talked about the experience that you got at People Tree Press that first enlightened you to the idea of marketing, and then here you are. So you've got a real kind of fascinating story. So thank you very much for sharing that, and then your tips as well. And we can talk a little bit more about that in the kind of follow-up questions that we have. I've just noticed that on the chat a poll has just appeared that I set up last night and timed it to come in at about 10 minutes in. So I was hoping that we may have been at a different point where we could have got into the poll, but it's kind of interrupted the introductions. But I don't see that as a bad thing. So just to let people know that there's a poll that's popped up in the chat. Hopefully you can all see it. I know some of you have already started to submit your answers. So just have a look at that, what it's asking, and just have a go at kind of answering that. And then we can talk about that a little bit more after everyone's been introduced. So yeah, thank you again, Courtney. That was really interesting to hear. And then, yeah, let me pass over to Rachel as well, just to introduce herself and just share her top 3 tips as well. Over to you, Rachel.
Thank you. So, hi everyone, I'm Rachel, and I was graduated from Beckett last year, so I was the last intake, and I actually start my new job tomorrow, so I'm not quite as experienced as the other guys. They've kind of kind of well on their way, but I've kind of just recently got the job that I was applying for. So I'll kind of go a little bit into the background and then talk you through like the tips, I guess, as well. So I had always been really interested in science from a very young age. So I found something from an old diary from when I was in year 6 saying that science was the one for me. And I really liked the practical element of it. I love doing like the experiments and stuff like that. So I'd always seen myself going into like a lab-based role. I couldn't deal with the blood and the guts and the horrible stuff, so medicine just wasn't an option. So I decided to go for biomedical science. And for those of you who do or don't know what biomedical scientists do, it's the people who are kind of behind the doctors in the labs who would do like your blood tests or your urine samples, and they basically assist the clinicians in their kind of diagnosis of the patients. So that's kind of what I'd always seen myself doing from, I guess, kind of picking my GCSE options. I thought, okay, this kind of science path is where I want to go. And I got to uni and started doing the practicals and actually found them quite stressful. I found that the detail of it just kind of became not overwhelming, just it wasn't something I quite enjoyed as much as I thought I would. But I still loved the learning and the science part of my degree. So when I was in the labs, I found myself kind of talking to people more than kind of enjoying the experiments. So I thought, okay, I need to do something where I'm still involved in like a science kind of role, but I'm kind of being able to communicate with people. So when I graduated, I decided I was going traveling. So I kind of put everything off for a few months and kind of went off and had a great time, and then came back in November, which wasn't a great time for kind of graduates to be seeking roles, because that's when everyone's winding down for Christmas and there's not as much out there. So kind of started applying for jobs, but really took it seriously kind of in the January time of this year. And I was thinking maybe teaching, because I really like kind of explaining scientific concepts to people, but kind of didn't really want to work with kids. So I decided, okay, maybe I could look at things like working in museums, again, going down that kind of explanation route. And I applied for a job, and it was a job that I thought I'd really enjoy. It was a STEM ambassador, and I didn't get the job, and I was gutted about it. But I'm actually kind of very glad that I didn't get the job, because it ended up leading to the job that I've secured now. So I ended up going into sales. I used to work at HomeSense, so it was like a retailer, and I actually really enjoyed just selling to people. And I thought, why not combine kind of my scientific knowledge and that kind of skill and just mash them together? So yeah, I was approached by a recruiter for a job that I never thought I would get. So the job actually covers the whole of the UK and Ireland, and I'm the only person on the team at the moment. But the company's expanding massively, so they're basically looking for somebody to kind of take on that role, and my manager's being promoted. So it's something I would have never applied for myself, but because the recruiter said you've kind of got the things that we need, just give it a go. And then kind of, I think 4 rounds of interviews later, got the job. So here I am, and I start tomorrow. So yeah, that's kind of where I am now.
No, that's brilliant, Rachel. Thank you. So yeah, it's a slightly different story as well. So you've very much been helped out by a recruiter who's kind of presented that opportunity for you as well. So that's great. Super. So yeah, do you want to say a little bit about your tips?
Yeah, absolutely.
As well. Yeah, thank you.
So actually, I was on another kind of Zoom thing with Tash a couple of weeks ago. So somebody said it was, you need to get on LinkedIn. That's kind of really important, particularly in a sales market. And I'm sure Courtney will agree, it's really important for building your network. And particularly actually at the moment with COVID, it's like been a phenomenal tool. And you just need to get on there, understand what's important on your profile, make sure your heading's good, because even if it's not a recruiter that might be looking for you, it might be somebody from a company that's kind of internally recruiting. They might say, oh, this person's interesting. So yeah, making sure that your LinkedIn is up to date. And also it's a great way of getting advice from people. People really want to help on LinkedIn. That's what I've found. If you reach out, people are way more likely to actually like give you some information or guidance or whatever that might be. And also I got opportunities. So I worked doing a small marketing project because I wasn't sure if I was going to go down the sales or marketing route. And I got that opportunity through LinkedIn. It's just like a competition I kind of applied for. So yeah, use LinkedIn effectively because it's the most like the easiest tool to utilize as a grad, I'd say. Again, I agree with Courtney, is just gaining as much experience as possible. I did an internship in my second year of university doing like a sales and marketing kind of thing in a similar kind of company to what I'm going into, so molecular diagnostics. And that again kind of set me up, and I thought, okay, this is something I could see myself doing. And what I definitely say is key to the people who are listening is that I've been asked about my degree once and my education once when I've been doing my interviews. People really, really care about experience over the first class honours, second class honours, whatever that might be. It's really important that you get that experience nailed. And also, just when you actually do go for your interviews, is just make sure that you prepare backups and examples of kind of when you've used that skill. So a lot of the interview questions will be, give me an example of a time when. And that's something I didn't really realise. I thought it was just kind of selling yourself, but you've got to be able to back yourself up as well.
That's brilliant, Rachel. No, thank you very much. And yeah, LinkedIn is something that you know, is very much at the heart of what we do, and how we promote that to students and encourage them. And we hear it all the time from employers, and it's great. You know, I think all three of you actually, I'm, you know, linked. There's a theme with LinkedIn. You're all very kind of active with LinkedIn. It's definitely something to really understand and utilize. It's a very powerful tool. I think particularly now. I think you touched upon that point. Which is great. And then also, yeah, like you say, it's all about being able to articulate your evidence and bringing in evidence to kind of back up your claims. And that's an important point as well. Like you say, something that you've kind of realized yourself going kind of through the process. So yeah, thank you very much for sharing that. And an interesting point you made about degree as well. And actually, I think what you were trying to say there is that, yeah, maybe the experience angle is the most important one to employers.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's again something that is really interesting to kind of understand from a student perspective. Yes, you know, your degree and what your degree provides you with is important, of course, but actually that experience piece is really significant. So yeah, thank you, Rachel, for sharing that. Just to please, if anyone tries to take over the slides, please don't do that because it's quite disruptive. I think we've kind of resolved the problem. So, you know, you are able to do that, but please don't. It's quite disruptive to the session. Yeah, so let's move on. And last but certainly not least, I'll hand over to Josh to kind of introduce himself and talk through his journey and also talk about his top 3 tips as well. So over to you, Josh.
Thanks, Ben. So hi everyone, my name's Josh. I did sociology at Leeds Beckett last year, graduated. I'm now currently the editor-in-chief of Baby Step magazine, which is a magazine I founded when I was at Leeds during my studies. When I came to the city, I was really blown away by just how much music, art, and just cultural stuff was around me. And I really wanted to document it. And I thought a magazine was a great way to do it. At the start, there was no career kind of in place or no long-term vision. It was usually just a great way to get into gigs for free and stuff. But slowly but surely, it started getting a bit more growth to the point where we're now at over 200 contributors. And it's been, yeah, a real pleasure to see it grow over the past 3 years. Now to the point that we're in a full-time studio in Albion Street, just by the train station in Leeds. The journey to get there was, yeah, it's been crazy really, just how much it evolved. But it was just one thing after another. You know, whether it was interviewing a bigger band or getting in touch with different people around the city. There's been a lot of big moments for us, like launching an independent radio show, putting on our own events. Our first event had a capacity of 100, and our latest one we had over 500 people turn up, which was absolutely amazing, and we're missing those events a lot. So during my time and kind of during my studies, alongside my magazine work, I also did a creative internship after my second year at university during the summer. And that was for a project where I helped with things like music curation and just creative direction on a project. And that project went to LA, which was absolutely amazing to be part of. Another thing I've done is help with events organisation at places like the Trinity Centre for local artist Nicholas Dixon, who put on an exhibition there. And we managed to kind of get global press coverage with publications like Mix Mag and Resident Advisor on board. So that was great. And then that led to me being able to work for Shelton Fleming, who are an events organisation in London. And we managed an event that was held at the Olympia in London, and that was for McKinsey and Co, who are the biggest consultancy company in the world. And it was a very, very daunting task to be part of, but I did find that things I got from my degree, running my magazine, just organizational skills all came through. And it was a real pleasure to be part of something that was a bit different, but I really, really enjoyed. And then aside from that, I also do a lot of freelance writing for publications like Mix Mag, Crack Magazine, and Leeds Live. It was a real honour to write, especially for Mix Mag. It's the magazine I bought ever since I was, a kid. I always asked my dad to buy me that magazine. So to be a freelance writer for those guys, in the respect that they literally inspired my magazine, has been amazing. And we are just really looking forward to, as Baby Step Magazine, moving back into our studio that we've only really just moved into in Albion Street. And just getting back into motion with everything and carrying on with the project.
That's wonderful, Josh. Thank you very much for sharing your story there. So, yeah, quite different, I suppose, in a lot of respects to Rachel and Courtney. You studied sociology, and you're very much call you a creative. You in that kind of creative sphere, and kind of co-created your own kind of opportunity. So again, I think the fit there with sociology, and I think with all of you as well, thinking, well, how does your degree fit into what you've gone on to do? So again, the theme of today's session. So that's really great, Josh. Thank you. And your top 3 tips as well there. Do you want to say a little bit about those?
Sure. So sell yourself, not the title of your degree. I mean, that's quite heavily linked to what this is all about, us being here today. But one thing I've noticed when I've applied for jobs, especially when I've been more successful, is that what I put first was the things I'd done outside of my degree. I think your degree gets you, it can get you in the conversation, and it can, catch people's eye, but that's only the beginning. And that's even if the employee does care about your degree in the first place, just specifically your degree. So for me, it's so important to get everything else you're doing other than your degree. So it might be, for me, it was running a magazine, writing for other magazines, all that type of stuff. And I know it can be really, really tough for people who might be coming to the end of their degree and might be saying, well, I don't think I've maybe done a lot of extracurricular activities. But all I'd say is this is a great time to be getting involved in projects, to be running your own thing, being part of someone else's. I don't think there's ever been a better time to get creative and get involved in a project that's going to be really appealing to potential employees. So yeah, it's about your personality. What you do outside your degree defines you, because that's you when you're technically outside of work. And what you do with those spare hours, I think, says a lot about you. The second one is expanding your application mindset. For me, I've found a lot of success in terms of getting the jobs I did freelance and part-time. I found that a lot of success when I didn't go down the conventional route of applications. So I'm not trying to in any way dismiss conventional applications that are just applying with your CV and a cover letter. I think that's a great thing to do. However, I think, if you are using the tools that we have talked about before, like LinkedIn and those things, if you can see a bit of a gap, it might be a small production company, for example, or a small company, you can see they're taking on a big project. Why not get in touch and just express that you're keen to help out? People and companies are very, very vocal on LinkedIn. They want to tell you what they're up to, what they've got coming up. And especially as a young person, if you've got that drive, you will always have a place within these companies to help them out in some way, because they know you're going to be willing. And really take advantage of that. See how you can get in touch with people. It's not just a case of applying where there's a vacancy. There's also a way to just get in touch in the first place. Let someone know that you're available, sending a portfolio. You don't have to be direct in saying, can you give me a job? You can say, would you need help in this department? This is some work I've previously done. I'm not sure if, you think this could tie into anything you guys are working on. And then my third top tip would be document your journey. It's been a massive thing for me, and I think the other people on this panel, with things like LinkedIn and social media. If you can document what you're doing, it makes the world of difference, because it's it's a constant reminder to potential employees or potential people who might want to collaborate with you of this person is doing stuff, this person's active in what they're doing. And I really support doing it formally through things like LinkedIn. LinkedIn for me is just a portfolio of my work. It's been a really useful tool, but you can also do it informally. For example, you know, this might apply a lot more to creative sectors of work, but if you are a journalist, if you make video content, if you make art content, get it up on Instagram and get it up. And you might have a personal account, but make an account for what it is you do. If you're an interviewer, if you're an artist, get it all on there. And that can be a great way of collaborating with new people. And it's a great way to document your journey. And, you know, documenting your journey doesn't only mean that the people you approach are more interested. It also changes that whole approach in that people might then start to approach you who, you know, you were never even thinking to get in touch with. You get messaged, or you get, you know, on LinkedIn or Instagram. And that is just a great way, not only to attract the people you do want to work for, but get people on board who, you know, you might not have thought about working for before.
That's brilliant, Josh. No, thank you very much for that. Really interested, you know, that point around expand your application mindset. So, yeah, you know, maybe thinking a little bit kind of outside the box. I think that's what you were kind of saying there. Not being afraid to kind of approach people, because those people are, and it was also mentioned, you know, again, when Courtney and Rachel were kind of talking about getting yourself out there through LinkedIn. So there are people out there that they're willing, they're receptive, they want to kind of hear from you. And I think the point now with how students and graduates are going to play a huge role in creating new opportunities. You know, that ground is fertile. So, you know, Josh, you kind of mentioned that kind of experimentation. What a great time to be able to do that at the minute. And then the document your journey piece as well. For me, when I saw that kind of made me think, tell your professional story. That's I think that's what, again, you were saying there, and that's something that LinkedIn allows you to do. All the social media, it allows you to be interesting, and you know that makes you interesting to other people, and that can lead to opportunities. So yeah, thank you to all three of you for that kind of introduction. I think you've you know, really offered some fantastic kind of advice there. So yeah, over to people in the chat, really. Is there any, you know, you've got the opportunity to kind of ask questions, post any questions for the panel, anything you've heard kind of so far.
Yeah, we've got a question here from Neil, actually. He's just asked, obviously young people are mentioned quite a lot. You guys are all fairly recent graduates who've kind of done the school, college, uni kind of process. But what would you say to maybe older students? Are those opportunities out there? How would you say that, well, is their journey any different, or is it the same?
Can I just chip in here? So
yeah,
there's a couple of people on my course who were classed as like mature students or slightly older, and they've kind of had a similar experience in that it's just about the experience that you've had, and maybe the advantage that you will have is you've done jobs maybe in between those studying times, and all of that is applicable. I've got a friend, Adam, who worked as a landscape gardener. He was a barista for a while, and he was like a team leader in that, and now he's working as a biomedical scientist. So your path, like you said earlier, it doesn't have to be linear. Just pick up on all of the skills that you've picked up along the way, and actually showing that you're versatile. And I think for a lot of employers, they like spend a lot of time and energy actually employing you and training you up. So you saying, actually, now this is what I've decided I really want to do, that's really valuable. Your passion and saying, I've decided that through trying other jobs or whatever path you may have gone through, this is what I want to do now. They can see that you're more committed to the job that they're offering, and I think that actually goes a long way. So yeah, don't be disheartened, just keep going, and it'll get there.
Yeah, just to jump on that, I think what Josh was saying about documenting your journey is definitely, if not even more important, if you're more of a mature student. I mean, just throwing it to the current times at the moment, I've got a lot of connections on LinkedIn that are, you know, 30, 40-year-old people that have actually been made redundant, and they're just using LinkedIn as a tool to get out there. You know, they're just making videos about what they're doing day to day, things like this. So I think that is definitely more important. Is the more you can get out there and speak to people, you know, business owners, lawyers, anything you're interested in, if you can just, people will be very happy to speak to you. So gain that experience, all that knowledge, and just, you know, learn from it.
Yeah, just going to add to what Courtney said. I completely agree. I think as an older student, all you can do is almost add more than we can, maybe as younger students, because of that life experience you've had, and whether it is that you're on a new direction or new journey, as you like, with what you want to do with your career. I think there's a real sense of clarity to that and honesty to that, in that if you are older and you've made that decision to you know, take a new path or really go for a career, I think that shows that you're really sure. Young people can be very unsure, and when they're straight out of uni, they might not know exactly what it is they want to do. So as an older person, having that clarity and being direct with potential employees, I think you know, it's not only a level playing field, it might even be an advantage.
Definitely. It's probably as well like articulating those experiences that you've had is the key thing that I'd probably say, working in a careers team, is just taking everything from those experiences and really showing why, whatever that experience is, it could be something that you feel is maybe completely unrelated, and linking it to this new role that you may be looking at and thinking, well, what skills have I pulled from this role that I could use in this role, and vice versa. So we've got another question here. Do short-term little projects still count as experience? Are they still considered insignificant? I think Josh might be quite a good one to go on this.
Yeah, so I do totally understand that question, because a project is different to like an internship. They are different things. I just think how effective those projects are. I don't think it's a thing of dismissing it or it doesn't count as experience, because for me, the main thing above all of that is your results from that project. You might engage in a charity fundraiser that you organise over the space of a week, but if you manage to raise, you know, £10,000 and get 2,000 people watching, that is almost more impressive than, you know, a 2 or 3 month internship. So I think what it is you do with those projects is really important. And I think also projects are a great symbolizer to an employee of your independence and the fact that you can think outside of the box. But I wouldn't discourage or sort of make sort of say that an internship's better than a project or a project's better than an internship. I think they're both as valuable as each other. And if you've got the time and if you're really committed to the, you know, a certain career path, I'd encourage doing both.
Yeah, does Courtney or Rachel, do you want to kind of add to that in any capacity?
Yeah, I mean, I think I mentioned earlier that when I finally decided I wanted a career within marketing and social media, that I started my own vegan Instagram page. And that was purely just because I thought, okay, so this is what I want to do. What can I do to be proactive in that area? And so something as little as just me sharing recipes that I found or food that I found that I enjoyed. Something so simple, which actually, you know, isn't hard at all either, proved really valuable to my employers. You know, that was on my CV when I applied for Voice Power, the job I'm in now. And it was something we spoke about in my interview. And then I wrote a couple of blogs for the Leeds Beckett online blog whilst I was at university. So little projects like that are definitely valuable. And I think if it is linked in any way to, you know, what you're passionate about and the career path you want to take, then, you know, it's all good experience, definitely, I would say.
Yeah, I'd just add to that as well. I think there's a way that you can, it's about adding to your portfolio of experience. I think that's probably a good way to describe it. And also there's an opportunity and here's a careers tip for you all as well, an opportunity to reframe, you know, maybe the idea of a project, a small, what you might think an insignificant project, but you can take that and you can use that to kind of experiment with what you might like to do, what then, you might be curious about certain things, and actually you can start to take these little experiments and you get to meet people along the way, and suddenly you start to see kind of new and exciting opportunities. So yeah, I totally, I would see those as possibly, arguably, maybe more, if you were to kind of more significant, put myself out there and saying, actually, yeah, you can see it helps us become clearer, helps us make contacts, helps us see things, and generates opportunities that we might not have been able to find, if that hadn't been the case. Rachel, is there anything you kind of want to add on that bit?
Yeah, I kind of agree with everything that's been said, but what I would definitely highlight is those kind of smaller things that you do are very good to bring up in interviews. So I wasn't expecting when I went for the sales role that there was going to be as many people on my interview as there was. So similar to like what we've got going on now, there was a panel of people from the HR department, people from the marketing department, from finance, from technical support, and everybody asked me questions from their own angle. So things that I'd done literally years ago, and also more recent smaller projects actually came into play, and I didn't even think that I could bring that up. So like literally way back when I was like 13, I'd done like a competition where I had been at like a science fair, and I was asked in my interview about doing like exhibitions. Like that's a big part of like the sales process when you're selling like molecular diagnostics products, as you go to these big scientific exhibition fairs. And they said, like, how would you interact with people, and kind of my awareness of just what that space looked like and how people do interact and how that works was valuable to bring up in the interview. And also I'd been asked by one of the marketing department about had I ever been part of any sort of marketing activity. And through a company called the GradSoc, who are great to look at on LinkedIn, and Tasha will know them very well because we were on a chat together not so long ago. But yeah, definitely connect with them. But they've got some great opportunities, and I basically applied to do some work for a marketing agency down south called Hotshot. And I won this competition, which I mentioned earlier. And I literally was making DIY bird feeders for small children, and that's producing like a small piece of content that'll run. And even just that small thing that I did, when I mentioned in the interview, they said, "Oh, that's really cool. Like that's so interesting. It's just different, and nobody else would have been applying for the job could have had that angle." So yeah, all the small things count, definitely.
No, that's wonderful. Thank you, Rachel. Yeah, so weaving it into the kind of interview kind of situation there. And yeah, and that point about, we're all kind of individual, we're all unique, and I think all those experiences that we have, and if we're able to articulate them, it kind of, that's we can use that to our advantage. So thank you. Yeah, so there were some students that couldn't join us today as well, but we had quite a lot of questions submitted in advance about this session. So I've just kind of put one in the chat here. So I just wondered what your thoughts were, panel, about this. So, we as a career service, and this feeds to the poll that we submitted into the chat earlier, how many graduate employers recruit from any degree background? The answer to that was 86%. So it's the majority of opportunities in the labour market, which the UK is quite unique for, are open to all kind of degree backgrounds. So, and we talk about and promote that. And actually the vast majority of our graduates will go into careers unrelated to their degree, like all three of you have. But do you get the sense that students may feel guilty, maybe career guilt about not pursuing a role directly in line with their degree? Rachel, can I go to you first with that one? Yeah,
I really identify with this because the path that I was on in my own head was going to be very academic. I would have loved to have been like Dr. Bell. That would have been great. And actually me moving away from the labs was a bit of something I had to get my head around. And I think a lot of people experience that sort of thing. But I think the way you've got to look at it is think of your degree as part of your journey, and think actually a lot of people that really do take a complete beeline from their degree, it's actually them deciding that's not what I want to do. But that means you're a little bit closer to realizing what you do want to do. So maybe if you studied maths and you went through university and it just was not for you, you can try something else, and you've kind of whittled that down and you're one step closer to finding your eventual job. So yeah, it's a process, and you've just got to let yourself feel through it, but don't feel guilty, because at the end of the day, a job's a job. And if you enjoy yourself on a day-to-day, that's way more important than landing yourself in a role that you're actually not comfortable with, and that even you might have studied 3 years, don't waste more time if it's not right for you. You know, now is the time to kind of breach out and try something new.
Wonderful, thank you. Josh, do you want to say a little bit about, in relation to that, if that kind of speaks to you, or anything you kind of offer as advice there?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's definitely a stigma. I don't think it gets talked about too much. In university, I'd agree there's a stigma, but I actually noticed the biggest stigma was in the workplace about this type of thing. I did some work on film sets, just helping out with the production, and a few times when I said I did a sociology degree, I did kind of get met with, well, why are you here? And they weren't challenging why I was doing the work I was doing. I was really glad to be doing that work, but I think in their mind, I think it is, it's back to that diagram you showed us right at the start, Ben, of it's not that straight line. And 3 years, in our heads, we might think we pick a degree, we get that job. It's such instrumental 3 years in our mindset, in our futures. You do a lot of growing up at university in terms of your headspace of what you want to do, what you want to go and achieve, and what you might have come to university for. It doesn't have to be what you get out of it. You might get something completely different out of university. When I joined, I had no ambition whatsoever to make a magazine. It was in the first 2 or 3 weeks that clicked, but that's totally different to maybe what I set out to do. I was maybe thinking about social work or that type of thing. So definitely, I definitely acknowledge the guilt or the stigma. I have occasionally felt it, but all I'd say is don't worry at all, because I think university really is an environment for you to be allowed to really think of alternative ways of doing things, or just a really good opportunity to decide what you want to do in those 3 years. So I wouldn't feel any guilt or it's not a worry at all if you want something different from what your degree sort of tells you can get.
That's wonderful, Josh. Thank you. I think those kind of 3 or 4 years you spend at university are such a huge transition, in terms of how you change, what you become more interested in. And actually, there is research to suggest that not many people really know what they want from a career anyway. So you might hear that question, what are you passionate about? Only a very small percentage of people actually know. And it's until you actually try things and experiment and undertake new learnings and experiences that you start to realise and start to create your own opportunities. So I think, and that's something to be celebrated as well. So yeah, it's great that we can hopefully break down that stigma and some of those myths about degree equaling kind of career. Courtney, is there anything you want to kind of say on that piece? Is that something you might have experienced or at uni, or is there anything you want to kind of offer in terms of advice?
For me personally, I don't really remember feeling like a guilt when I kind of realised I was interested in marketing. I mean, obviously you get the question all the time if you're an English student, you're gonna do teaching then? That's the first thing people think. But I think English is actually a very versatile degree. I mean, even in my interview, my bosses expressed kind of like, even just having someone that knows how to write and knows grammar and punctuation, apparently that's hard to come by. So, I didn't feel that personally, but I can understand why people would, because, you put so much into a degree that it's like, is all that wasted now because I'm not going to be doing a career in that subject? But as the other guys have said, everything taken from your degree is valuable. For me, the writing of the essays I still use today because I write blogs for the website. So many skills are transferable, and I just think the main thing employers are looking for is the fact that you have the commitment, you have the dedication, and you have the drive to do something, and I think that's the main thing people are looking for. So definitely don't feel guilty, because you're still getting such a lot from your years at university.
No, that's great. Thank you, Courtney. Yeah, and I think you've all kind of mentioned it's the skills, the transferable skills, recognizing those skills in addition to the experiences and the skills you've got from those experiences, and how you kind of put all those together. I think that's it's so powerful. And the employers, people are open to that as long as you're able to tell that story, which is something that kind of Josh mentioned quite specifically. And that kind of feeds into a question that's popped into the chat actually. So we've got a question here. So what about students who already have part-time jobs during their degree, which a lot of our students do? How can they open up to more opportunities and experiences whilst balancing work and university? So yeah, obviously the difficulty in terms of balancing everything. Can I go to you, Rachel, to kind of start and try and answer that one?
Yeah, I think it's really difficult because a lot of students really do require the funds from a part-time job, and at that moment in time, securing your rent is kind of the most important thing. So it's something I completely understand, and it is a struggle. I think what I would say, and this is from my own experience, is I worked for the same business for 5 years. So I worked for HomeSense and I loved it, and I'd kind of moved between stores, and I had a very good relationship with my managers. So I think what I would say to that is it kind of depends on your situation. But I just spoke to my managers and said, look, I'm not going to be here forever. The degree I'm doing, and they knew a lot about us. I've been offered this opportunity to do an internship, and I would really like to come back here at the end of that internship and come and work for you guys for another year, 2 years, whatever that might be. But it's really important for us. And they were like, absolutely, yes, we're so pleased for you. Let's go off and do it. And some people don't have that luxury, but I think just having that open and honest conversation with your employers, even if it might be like having a week off to do something, or saying, actually, can I not work Thursday evenings because I'm going to dedicate that time to another internship or some project that you've got going on the side. It's just about being open and honest and not putting too much on your plate as well, because you can get overwhelmed very easily. So be kind to yourself, but if you do need to drop down your hours and you can't afford to do that, then it's definitely worth it in the long run.
That's great. Yeah, thank you, Rachel. I suppose as well, with the summer periods as well, and times where you might not be studying as full-time, or even your part-time job might not be or it might be that's all that you kind of might be doing as well. So I think there'll always be points maybe within the calendar year where there's opportunities to try new things, and maybe some of those experiments and take on new things as well. But yeah, I think you're right. It's a difficult balance, and I think not being kind of too harsh on yourself, and maybe not dismissing the value of part-time work. I know a lot of our students will use quite negative language around part-time work and refer to it as just my part-time job. So we'd always say, no, actually, it's a significant responsibility managing part-time work and studying a degree. So recognize some value in that and the skills. Josh, do you want to kind of add any bits in relation to that question?
Yeah, I'm in agreement with everything Rachel said. And I think I had to work part-time during my degree at a leisure centre, and I did get a lot from that role. But obviously I understand the question is touching on how much time that actually takes away from being able to engage in projects and internships. For me, I used my holidays, so summer holidays, as Ben previously said, and just little pockets of the calendar year where you can go, right, I can get a week in there, or I can get 2 or 3 days in there. And I think with these projects, or even if it's 2 or 3 days of applying for roles, it makes a massive difference if you can even have 2 or 3 days where you're working on that thing, because of the momentum you'll get from it. But yeah, it's really not a thing of being too harsh on yourself for having a part-time role. I think it's looking at where the gaps are that you can do it. Another thing I found really, really helpful when I wanted to still be working on a project, even when I was caught up with part-time work in my degree, was don't be afraid to collaborate with people. It's very, very tough to manage a project all on your own. And I just really encourage, there's going to be at least 4 or 5 people on your course, or even at the university, who will be in a similar position to you, where they want that extracurricular, they want that experience. And why not help each other out? If you're working different shift patterns, you could maybe do your bit of work on that project when you've got free time, and vice versa. So collaboration's a great way to take away, our intensive work on a project, and just utilize the holidays and the pockets of the calendar year when you can.
That's great, Josh. Thank you. Yeah, I really like that one. Look at the people you're studying with. Some students will be studying on quite big courses as well, and probably won't know everyone. But actually, it might just be a case of starting where it's really close and seeing who might have some similar interest. And you never know what that could lead to. It could lead to setting up a business opportunity. There was a couple of years ago, we had a media student and a film student, so studying different courses, but at Leeds Beckett, they managed to strike up a conversation. Next thing you know, they're setting up their own production company as well. So it can be really those very small, simple, serendipitous conversations that can strike things up. So thanks for sharing that, Josh. Courtney, can I kind of bring you into to this question as well?
Yeah, definitely. So for me, I kind of managed to find a little loophole, if you like. So I worked part-time at church, which is a bar just by Broadcasting Place. I think it's closed now. So my hours were extremely unsociable. I'd start at 10:30, get home at 7 a.m. And the next day I just wanted to sleep all day. So it really ate into my own time as well. But whilst I was there, they were, starting out as a relative new bar. And so they'd started their own Instagram page. And so I said to my boss, I'm quite interested in marketing. Do you want me to see if I can run it for a few days or weeks? And they know your foot's already in the door. So why else would they want, why would they want to look for someone else when you're already working there, So maybe look at your part-time job and see if there's an angle you can kind of go in at for what you want experience in. So yeah, I would definitely recommend that. And then also, again, take advantage of those times where you do have free time, the summer holidays, the Christmas holidays. That would be my advice.
I really like that one, Courtney. Looking internally. Often, students might be looking for maybe some specific experience. So they might have a part-time job. They might be looking for some specific experience. And actually, they're working a part-time job in maybe quite a large organisation. You could even take the supermarkets as an example and thinking, well, supermarkets are huge. They've got every role and function you can think of. So looking internally, you may be able to drop someone an email in the marketing department, for example, and just say, can I have a conversation? And again, you never know where that might lead. So I think often, instead of looking, out and beyond, sometimes it's looking what's really close to you. And I think, it's great that all three of you have kind of offered some advice there for our students in relation to that. So just checking the time, I can't believe it's 3:25. So we've accelerated towards the end. So we're really close. But another question's popped up in the chat here, and this is one that's quite an interesting one. I think it's always been an interesting one, but certainly for the current time, given what's happened with, the labour market, with maybe fewer opportunities, there might be more kind of students now who have finished their undergrads and maybe thinking, okay, postgrad study, masters. So, question here: did you consider doing a masters, further quals at all after graduation, and how do you go about deciding whether a masters or further qualifications is worth it or not? I really like that question. Thank you, Krithana, for asking that. So, Rachel, can I go back to you to have a go at answering that to start with?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think a lot of people do consider it. And I think for some people, masters, a lot of my friends actually see it as I can stay in uni for another year and I'm not sure what I want to do. But actually, it was some advice that was given to us by Georgina on the careers team. And she said to us that it's in terms of money, is the funding that is there. I mean, this might change in the future, but you only kind of get funding for so long. And I think you only get the 1 or the 2 years funding. I'm not sure in the specifics, but what she said is actually, if you're not that sure on what you want to do, so for example, I was kind of considering maybe doing teaching in the future, maybe as if I kind of decide I do sales and then it's not for me, then that opportunity is there. Not to kind of, I don't want to say waste the funding early on when that actually might be really useful in later years if you do decide to differentiate and actually that further qualification might be useful. So in a couple of years' time, I might decide to do like a business master's if I continue on my journey. And I think just kind of considering that is really important. But if you think that you have a very set career path and you know exactly what you want to do, then it can definitely help you increase your pay as well when you actually get the job. I think that's something that's worth knowing. But you've kind of got to decide whether it's worth it for you specifically and on your particular career journey.
Thank you, Rachel. I've just in terms of mentioning funding, I've just popped a link into the chat, which takes students to prospects at ac.uk. So it talks there about funding, all the funding implications, but anything to do with further study, that's a great place to look. So those of you that want some more insight into that, yeah, please kind of have a look on there, and certainly take Rachel's kind of advice on board. And Josh, is there anything you want to kind of add to that? Is it something you might have considered, or maybe still, or?
Yeah, I really, really enjoyed my degree, and I was thinking, do I do a master's? And for me, I did eventually have quite a strong feeling. I think it's really important with these decisions to not think you have to make that decision, in a heartbeat. Really, I'd honestly even recommend something as simple as just getting a pen and pad out and writing down kind of, what the strengths of either doing a master's or going into your career, and then by then I think you'll notice kind of the disparity, and you'll pick one. I really did have to lay it all out on the table, but I'm glad. I feel like I made the right decision. But if a master's is calling you, either because you're really keen on career progression or just incredibly interested in the topic, then approach it. However, if you are, if you think that your career will benefit by you jumping straight in, then I'd recommend doing it. I think we're at a luxury where either a master's or a job. I think you've got an option to kind of make a turn on either. If you do a master's and after your master's you go, right, I really do want to go into a certain career now, you can do that. And equally, if you do go down a certain career path and feel like this really didn't work out, I wish I did do a master's and excel at what it was I was studying, you can also do that as well. So I think it's being open to both options, and don't close the door on one of them, because I think it will just, there might be some regret that comes in. So just really think about both, lay out what it is you can, envision yourself doing next year. You might say that to yourself. I know that's hard under the current situation we're all in, to really know what we're going to be doing this time in 12 months. But if you just try and picture to yourself what it is you want to have achieved in the next year or so, then that might give you another great answer. But it's just well worth thinking about and not rushing at all.
No, that's great, Josh. Thank you very much for that. It's I think Courtney's probably had to duck out, so I can't bring Courtney in at this point. Can you folks just see I brought the slides back up. Can you see those? Yeah, no, great. Yeah, Josh, just to kind of mention as well there, and something Rachel, you kind of mentioned, what you don't want to do, if you're thinking about a master's and maybe thinking, it's worth a punt because of the state of the economy, and there might not be as many opportunities, and it's another year to kind of work things out. If you are going to go with that kind of thought process, it's using that time very wisely as well. Think back to what every single one of the panel members has mentioned in terms of there's a lot of information that employers want to know about your experience. So it's more about experience and qualifications. So if you are going to do a master's because you love of learning or for whatever reason, make sure you supplement it with much more than just another degree. Ultimately, I think that that's something I can offer from a kind of careers perspective. Courtney, are you back with us?
Yes, finally.
Fantastic.
You lost me for a minute there.
It happens. No, thanks for joining back in. So perfect timing, because Josh has just kind of finished answering that question. So yeah, just finally we'll go to you. So yeah, just a reminder, really, it was a postgrad study. So the question, did you consider doing a master's further qualification at all after graduation? And how do you go about deciding whether a master's is worth it or not?
Yeah, so kind of from second year, I was dead set on doing a master's actually. And again, I think probably linking back what Rachel said, it was purely because I just wanted to stay at university. I don't think it was because like I said, I don't think it would have added any value. I think a lot of employers actually prefer experience rather than a master's. But I was just wanting to buy myself a little bit more time. But not to scare you, I got to third year and I thought, no way am I doing this all again. So I kind of just decided then, as you know, the first semester of third year, I thought I am not doing another year. So that kind of ruled it out for me. But I think, yes, look, I think a master's is really beneficial if you know what you want to do and you've got that career path and you know for sure that that master's is going to get you where you need to be. I've got friends where, that is, necessary for them to get into the career they want to be in. So if that's the case, then, by all means, but definitely don't do what I nearly did and just do it because you're not sure.
Yeah, no, thank you, Courtney. I was probably just before you were able to tune back in, just saying that, yeah, if you're going to use, another year, maybe, as a delay tactic, and that might sometimes be the case with a postgrad qual, but also utilising that time as best you can to kind of maximise different experiences as well. So not just again relying on another qualification. You're building yourself to be a well-rounded graduate. So you're getting experiences, you're trying new things, and that will very much also shape what you do next. So yeah, thank you for that. So that probably brings us to a close. No more questions have popped up, and we've just gone over the time allocated. So I'd like to say a huge thank you to Rachel, to Josh, and to Courtney for taking the time out of their very busy schedules this afternoon. And I think for Rachel as well, it's Rachel starts a new job tomorrow. So yeah, thank you for that, Rachel. So eating into a little bit of final social time before you start that new exciting career tomorrow. But yeah, it's been wonderful to have you all. Such interesting advice and such interesting stories as well. You very much fit that. Use your degree and those additional experiences that you gained whilst you've been with us, and you've kind of mapped out your own futures. And it's it's really inspiring to hear these stories. I'm hopeful that everyone that's joined us this afternoon has also found it valuable, and it'd be great to hear from you as well. So we'd really value your feedback. So those of you that have joined in this afternoon, did you find the session useful in terms of providing you with some new ideas, or the hints and tips being offered in terms of moving you forward? Please let us know, pop it in the chat. Any feedback's welcome. It helps us as a university career service. It helps us learn, it helps us grow and develop as well. And it helps us understand what you need from us as well. So yeah, just once again, thank you, Courtney, Josh, and Rachel. Yeah, it's been a real pleasure, and hopefully we can get you back in soon at some point as well, because you've been such a valuable addition to our Beyond Beckett Careers Week. And just a reminder for everybody, tomorrow is Beyond Beckett. It's Wednesday, so we're halfway through the week. So tomorrow's all about, I've got some ideas, what about my next steps? So again, a number of sessions running tomorrow and throughout the rest of the week, in addition to what we've had today. So if there's anything that's of interest, please tune in as well. That's been great. Yeah, so some really nice comments coming through in the feedback, folks. Really appreciative comments from the students. So yeah, thank you once again to you all. And I'll let you all go. So I'll end the session now, but if anybody wants to continue to add any comments, you can. The chat remains open after the session has ended. So it would be good to hear any further kind of feedback. So yeah, once again, thank you, Josh. Thanks, Courtney, and thank you, Rachel. Yeah, you've been wonderful this afternoon, and that's been such a valuable just over an hour we've spent, and our students have got loads from this. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Okay.
Thank you. See you later.
Thanks for having me.
Take care.
Bye.
Take care. Bye now. Bye.